You probably don't know that the Big Ten, yes, I know, the silent Big Ten, who doesn't talk all that much to the media, but likes to talk behind the scenes with the people who actually matter in decision making, just forced a rewrite of the college sports bill that was designed to put them in a box. You see, there was this meeting that happened, I guess you could say, and then came a joint statement that came out of the meeting. And the revision, Ross Dellinger is already reporting, are not normal political theater. All right, they are the Big Ten drawing a hard line in the sand and watching the other side blink. We are going to keep you updated on the whole thing here at the Big Ten Huddle, brought to you by FanDuel. So while the SEC whines and complains to the media, the Big Ten is actually getting things done. You see, on Tuesday, 4 Big Ten presidents sat down with a group of U.S. senators. The powerful group included presidents from Ohio State, the president from Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, and USC. Across the table, they had Ted Cruz and Maria Cantwell, the two sponsors of the Protect College Sports Act, plus other politicians from Ohio, Michigan, and Pennsylvania were there as well. They released a joint statement afterward calling the meeting very productive, right? Of course, all these political meetings are very productive. That phrase is doing a lot of work there, doing a lot of work, because these same 4 schools in the Big Ten as a conference had already gone on record opposing the bill in its current form. The Big Ten and the SEC both said the original version left critical issues unresolved, failed to properly preempt the patchwork of state laws, and altered the House settlement revenue sharing framework in ways that could leave fewer athletes getting paid. So what changed, right? Something had to give, something had to change here. Well, the president's statement is careful but clear. They appreciate the effort, as they're always going to say. They support the bill's intent to make things better, protect things, sure. But then they list the non-negotiables. They want an NIL and revenue sharing framework that is workable, enforceable, and fair. They want liability protection and preemption of state law that is already clear enough to stop the nonsense litigation. And then the quiet part that matters most for the next decade of college football. Here it is. They insist that colleges and universities have always retained flexibility over conference membership, sponsored sports, scholarships, scheduling, and, of course, media rights. Yes, pulling media rights. They don't have to do that. This is huge. Okay? Preserving that flexibility, they say, is what allows colleges to offer broad-based sports programs and protect the student athlete experience. They're saying all of these things. What they really want is money. That's what they really want. That last sentence is the tell, because the original Protect College Sports Act contained 2 provisions that attacked exactly that flexibility to be able to change conferences. One would have allowed FBS schools to pool their media rights. The media rights if the 75% or more of them voted yes. The other would have prohibited the Power 4 conferences from expanding. Both of those were dead on arrival for the Big Ten. No, non-negotiable, can't do that if you're going to restrict us like that. Now, if you look at what Ross Dellinger reported after the meeting and subsequent call with more than 25 Division I commissioners, there is movement on what's going on here. Lawmakers are considering revisions again. The anti-expansion concept is being adjusted so that school movement is still permitted, but third-party poaching to form a super league is prohibited. The language around pooling media rights is being reinforced as voluntary. And there's clarification coming on the prohibition of NIL deals with associated entities. That is not a minor tweak. That is the Big Ten taking the parts of the bill that threaten their structural advantages and forcing them to be at the negotiating table. You see, the Big Ten is playing hardball with Congress. Up until now, all we have seen were statements from the Big Ten and the SEC saying, we don't like the Protect College Sports Act. We don't like it. It's not good. And things like that, right? But now we are getting more of the truth. We are getting action of what happened, which is that the two most powerful conferences told Congress the current bill is unacceptable. All right, you cannot do this. It's unacceptable. And Congress is now rewriting the parts that threaten those conferences. The bully in the room is not the government like many people think it is. The bullies in the room are the Big Ten and the SEC, who are demanding the bill be changed otherwise. They won't like the results. The Big Ten and SEC just reminded everyone who still holds the leverage. Now, this is important. That sounds great, but you're probably wondering, why does this matter for my Saturdays? Why is this something I need to pay attention to? Why is this something that we need to even be talking about, JR? Good point. Watching the games on the field, right? Well, if you think of the Protect College Sports Act like a homeowners association, rewriting the rules for the entire neighborhood, the original draft said the biggest houses on the block would be forced to share their cable package if enough smaller houses voted on it, and that those bigger houses were permanently banned from buying the empty lot next to them. The Big Ten presidents walked in and said, if you think we're going to share, if you think we're going to sign this and share what we got and stay here, you are poorly mistaken. See how successful you are when when everyone with value decides to leave you and your moochers and all you have, to which the HOA simply said, oh, yes, sir. And now they're changing their language. They're changing everything about it. Not everything, but they're changing everything that the Big Ten and the SEC once changed about it. Because guess what? If the Big Ten and the SEC aren't there, you don't really have college football to the same level. That's not abstract, all right? Every Big Ten school's long-term ability to control their own media rights, to decide who joins the conference and protect the revenue that funds the rest of the athletic department, sits inside this bill. If the original version has passed, you would have woken up one day with a forced national media rights pool and diluted value of the Big Ten's current deals, and a hard ceiling on any future expansion that might have strengthened the conference further. That is real money that eventually shows up in coaching salaries, facilities, and the NIL environment that decides which players stay and which leave. I mean, we're talking about a scenario here where Ohio State could be making the same or a very similar amount to Texas State. You tell me how that's fair. You tell me how that works at all right? The timeline here, though, is real. There's real pressure in it. The Senate is looking at a floor vote before the August recess. That is why the meeting happened this week. That is why Cruz and Cantwell got on a call with commissioners and talked about positive momentum. We need positive momentum here. The window is short, and the Big Ten used that to their advantage, because without the Big Ten and the SEC, this was very likely not going to pass. Because when they call, you answer, right? The conference already operates from a position of strength on media rights. The current deals are strong. The brand is national. The product is deep. The original bill's 75% pulling trigger would have handed smaller conferences a potential veto over the value of those deals, making pulling voluntary removes the threat. That is a clean win for the Big Ten. The expansion language is even more interesting. The Big Ten is not currently shopping for more members, at least as far as we know, the way they have done a few years ago, but they also aren't going to just be closed for business and say, nope, nobody in here allowed, because you get the right team in, Notre Dame, you're going to get some more money, right? So certain schools have a direct phone line to call Tony Petitti when they are ready to join, or if they have very serious questions about joining the conference. So they want to keep the ability to move, to add, or simply to threaten to add as a leverage to happen. And the smaller conference schools want to be able to be added. They want that dream to stay alive. So the revised approach keeps traditional conference movement open while slamming the door on private equity or breakaway Super League scenarios that have been floated around the edges of the sport for quite some time now. That is the Big Ten saying, we will decide our own membership. We will decide what works best for us. Outside money does not get to invent a new league and poach our schools. This also protects the House settlement revenue sharing framework that is already in motion. The original bill was criticized for potentially reducing the number of athletes who receive direct payments. The Big Ten's insistence on a workable, enforceable NIL and revenue share system is an attempt to keep the current structure from being gutted by congressional language that does not understand the political or the practical realities on campus. Word around the league is that the commissioner's call after the president's meeting was more optimistic than the previous ones. Of course, after you get one of these meetings, all the presidents get together, they talk about it, the commissioners talk about it, like everybody talks about these things. I was told that after this happened, there are more higher ups in Big Ten universities who are saying the bill is becoming more, quote, workable. You see, in the past, the Big Ten completely opposed the bill, wasn't workable, wasn't anything you could work with. But now, we just start to see it becoming a thing that the Big Ten might actually start supporting. You see, as we've seen, the Big Ten operates differently from the SEC. They did not scream about the bill in public for months. They let the SEC share the opposition load, then sent 4 of their own presidents into a room with the exact senators who control the floor and schedule. They walked out with movement on the 2 provisions that most threaten the structural power of the Big Ten. That is getting work done, which the Big Ten wants to do. As I said here multiple times, the Big Ten wants to work through these things and remain a part of the NCAA. That's what they want. But they also aren't going to be stupid. They're not going to be stupid and make decisions that are not good for their conference and for their teams. Meanwhile, the SEC, they have a different approach. They want to blackball the NCAA and have everyone believe that they are stupid and that the SEC needs to break away from the NCAA. The Big Ten will absolutely break away if they need to, but it's not their plan they are shooting for like the SEC is. A lot of this was run by Ohio State. Their president was in the room and was a key talker. Ohio has 2 senators at the table. Their president was in the room and was a key talker. Ohio State has 2 senators at the table. Well, the state of Ohio has 2 senators at the table. The Buckeyes have as much to gain as anyone from protecting the current media rights structure and keeping expansion flexibility open. A forced national pool would have diluted the value of their brand inside a larger pie. Keeping control matters here for the Buckeyes a whole lot. Meanwhile, Michigan is in a more complicated spot. Their president was also there, but the athletic department is dealing with their own issues, I guess we could say, internal questions and stuff. They're not really focused on this right now, but the president is. So still, the long-term structural protections help every school in the conference in the same way. A stable national framework with clear preemption reduces the legal chaos that has made planning so difficult the last few years. And then you have Penn State and USC who sit in the same category. Both have presidents who showed up, both benefit from the conference retaining the ability to control its own destiny on membership and media. USC especially has a West Coast media market that would look very different inside a forced national pool. Plus, they want to be in the decision maker club of the Big Ten, right? They want to be upon the elites of the elites on the field and off the field. USC on the field is improving rapidly. Good for them. They could make the playoffs this year, and that would be awesome. They have top 4 odds to win the Big Ten this year. They sit at plus 1,400 on FanDuel. They're tied with Michigan, who won the conference for 3 years straight, and they want to make sure that they are improving in the conversations behind the scenes as well. For the rest of the conference, you're talking the Indianas, Illinois, Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and the West Coast schools that are kind of still budding in this. The revised bill protects the rising tide, a strong Big Ten media rights environment, and the ability to expand or restructure if needed is how the middle and lower half of the conference keep climbing. Chaos and forced pulling favor the status quo of the past. It favors the Big 12. It favors the ACC. Structure and flexibility, and the SEC in some ways too, but not exactly the same. Structure and flexibility favor the teams who are investing in improving, like the Big 10. You see, if you are an Indiana or Illinois or Iowa fan and you think that Ohio State and Michigan are just out for protecting themselves and not looking out for the rest of the conference, you're missing it. All right. The meeting with Ted Cruz and Maria Cantwell wasn't just for them. It wasn't just for the Big Ten. It was for college football and college sports as a whole, and for the Big Ten in a lot of ways. The revised language they discuss keeps the entire conference's media rights from being diluted and keeps the door open for the future moves that could strengthen the entire league, because the government pretty much screwed this thing all the way up and nobody was supporting it, so it was not going to pass. But now the Protect College Sports Act might just pass if they get the public endorsement of the Big Ten. That might just be the level of support they need to get this to happen. Now, there's still risk. There is still risk, though. Okay, momentum is not a finished bill or anything like that. The Senate has to move. The House has its own dynamics. The revisions get watered down, or the whole thing stalls. We are right back to the patchwork of state law and constant litigation that has made the last 3 years so unstable. The Big Ten has made its position clear. Now the question is whether Congress actually will deliver in the middle ground for both sides they claim they want. The bigger picture here is simple, is that self-governance has failed. Jim Phillips said it out loud this week at the ACC, what's it called? Media Days. I can't remember it off the top of my head. Self-governance to him means no governance. All right. The SEC would love that. They would absolutely love that. They thrived when there were no rules. The Big Ten knows they don't want to get into a situation where everyone makes up their own rules, because then there would be no rules. If it won't end well for Big Ten teams, because we saw how it ended when there were no rules before. The SEC cleaned shop because they could do whatever they want and nobody held them to anything. That is why their presidents were in the room. They are not waiting for the NCAA to fix this. They are treating Congress as the only body left that can create a national framework that actually sticks. And they are doing it from a position of strength, not asking for favors. They are demanding the language that protects the model and protects the Big Ten. That's the real story of this week. Not that a bill is moving, that the Big Ten forced the rewrite of the parts that mattered most to them, or anything like that. One clear takeaway: when the people who run the most valuable conference in the sport walk into a room with senators writing the rules and walk out with the most dangerous provisions being revised, that's not a coincidence. That is leverage. Leverage, ladies and gentlemen, being used. Thank you for watching the Big Ten Huddle. Subscribe for more straight Big Ten talk analysis. Gets away from the national media and their spin, skips all that stuff, and delivers you exactly what you need to know. Drop a comment and tell me which Big Ten school you think benefits the most if this revised bill actually passes. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.